It's all over for Uranus. The ice giant is locked into a collision course with the king of all planets in our solar system, Jupiter. What would happen as the two planets made their epic approach? Would Uranus get pulled apart into bits and pieces? Or could this ice giant somehow deal a mortal blow to its gigantic opponent? This is What If, and here's what would happen if Jupiter and Uranus collided. Okay, let's get to know our two planetary prize fighters a little better. Before they both potentially get blown into oblivion. First, Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system. Put all the other planets together and it's still twice as massive, but this monstrosity has no solid surface. It's nearly all gas, mostly made out of hydrogen and helium. In the other corner of the ring is Uranus. Even though it's 3 times smaller and 20 times less massive than Jupiter, it's the third largest planet in the solar system, so don't let the size difference fool you. Underneath Uranus's hydrogen and helium atmosphere, there's an abundance of water ice. That's why Uranus isn't a gas giant like Jupiter. It's an ice giant, like its neighbor, Neptune. Of all the planets in the solar system, Uranus is unique. It rotates on its side, all thanks to an Earth-size object that slammed into it billions of years ago. So, could the most epic collision in the history of collisions end with Uranus getting knocked right side up? Before we witness this epic disaster unfold, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, Henson Shaving. Look, shaving's a part of our everyday lives, but these little plastic razors have a massive impact on our environment. I used to go through a few dozen of these razors a year. A lot of us do, but all that plastic waste goes from your bathroom to the landfill, where it sits for decades, unable to break down, polluting our planet even more. But with Henson Shaving, I'm reducing my carbon footprint and getting the best shave of my life. Henson's perfectly balanced AL13 razor supports the blade right at the edge, giving me a smooth shave and keeping my lines tight. The double-edged blades are plastic-free, so when you need to change them out, you just pop them in the recycle bin. And check out this razor. It's made to aerospace standards. Yeah, Henson used to manufacture aerospace parts. They even helped build parts of the Mars rover. And now, all that craft and care is being put into this razor, the last razor you may ever buy. So, where can you get yours? Go to hensonshaving.com and enter What If at checkout to get 100 free blades with the purchase of the AL13. Just pick your favorite color for the razor, add the 100 blade pack, and enter the code at checkout. Henson razors are built to last a lifetime, but if these planets collide, that promise might be cut short. You likely don't track Uranus's whereabouts in the night sky, but if you did, you'd be in for the realization that the icy planet has somehow slipped out of its usual orbit, commencing countdown to collision. On its way toward Jupiter, Uranus would first need to survive a close encounter with the gas giant next door, Saturn. With all its colorful rings and many moons, Saturn is twice as large as the stinky blue planet. But the two planets have very similar gravitational pulls, so as they just barely brush past one another, Uranus could end up sweeping up a moon or two to add to its current collection of 27. Uranus would now be barreling down onto its opponent. The closer it gets, the clearer the picture would become of just how incredibly enormous that opponent is. Jupiter is over 20 times as massive as Uranus, and even though it doesn't technically have a surface, its surface gravity is more than twice as strong. Maybe Uranus was barking up the wrong planetary tree. Except it's too late to turn back now. Besides, you've got front row seats to this epic fight. It wouldn't be smooth sailing right up into Jupiter's atmosphere. First, Uranus would have to elbow its way through some of Jupiter's 80 moons. The first of these would be Pasiphae. There wouldn't be too much to worry about here. Pasiphae is very small. It's more than 60 times smaller than our moon. Uranus would pass right by it and the remaining minefield of Jupiter's moons completely unscathed. Okay, now the planetary heavyweights would be getting close. But how this collision would unfold would all depend on Uranus's angle of impact. If it somehow managed to slip into Jupiter's orbit, then the two would be on course for a head-on collision. In this event, the atmospheres of both planets would compress as they came into contact. This would result in both of their temperatures rapidly increasing. And then, boom! No, I'm just kidding. With no oxygen on either planet, they wouldn't ignite in fiery explosions. But if you're only in it for the spectacle, well, don't worry. The collision would still be very violent. The two planets would make full-body contact, combining their mass along the way, like a Uranus or maybe a Jupiter. One thing that wouldn't happen, though, is Jupiter turning into a star. In order to become a brown dwarf, it would need to weigh 13 times more than it does now, or 85 times more if it wanted to become a low-mass star. Sadly, adding Uranus under its belt would only increase Jupiter's mass by a fraction. Now, more realistically, Uranus would hit Jupiter from the side. This collision would also begin with the two atmospheres compressing, except instead of merging into one, they'd both remain somewhat intact but have a lot of their gases thrown off into space. So, after this epic encounter, we'd still be left with 8 planets in the solar system. Though these two would certainly look a little different. Jupiter would look like a thinner version of its formerly huge gassy self. And Uranus could end up being not much more than a solid rocky core covered in water and ammonia. If things unfolded like this, then that could leave Saturn to take over the throne of largest planet in the solar system. Well, that makes me think, what would happen if the two gas giants collided in all their former glory? Well, that's a story for another What If.